Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It has been a hot minute since I've been here. Life has kind of got in the way recently of me uploading videos, but I'm back and I have been reading a lot of books in my time away. And I'm so excited to talk today about 3 books that I've read recently all about food. I don't think I've ever discussed the topic of food on my channel before, which is such a shame because food is nonfiction and my channel is all about nonfiction. And for those who don't know, I am obsessed with food. I actually think I was obsessed with food well before being a foodie was ever a thing. I've always enjoyed going out to nice restaurants. I've always enjoyed eating new food, trying new food. And in the last couple of years or so, I've also developed a really big passion for cooking food at home. People have always asked me, Jasmine, if you enjoy going out to restaurants so much and eating so much, do you also enjoy cooking at home? And I used to always say to them, no, I like eating, not cooking. But recently, over the last couple of years, I have developed a big passion for cooking at home too, much to the enjoyment of my husband, who gets to eat all the food that I cook. And so reading cookbooks has also become a really big passion of mine recently. I'm at my local library about 3 times a week, and I love the library for cookbooks. I'm absolutely obsessed with cookbooks at the moment. I just love flicking through them, reading the recipes, looking at the pictures. But I've also come across a couple of books that are definitely more book than recipe book, that I have really enjoyed reading as well, and I want to talk about those today. If you like food and you like reading, these books are going to be for you. Let's dive in. The first book I want to talk about today is Taste by Stanley Tucci. I'm so sorry, I think his surname is pronounced Stanley Tucci. It could be Stanley Tucci. Believe it or not, I am actually half Italian and I have a very difficult to pronounce Italian surname as well. But unfortunately, I don't speak Italian, so I know how to pronounce my surname. I'm not sure how to pronounce Stanley's. I think it's Tucci. I'm just going to go with that. Stanley, if you're watching, I'm very sorry for butchering your surname if I have. I know Stanley has a couple of books out at the moment, and I think they're all based around food and his experience about food. I've only so far read Taste, and before I read it, I was kind of like, do I even really want to read this? I know Stanley is a big actor. You've probably seen him in The Devil Wears Prada. I personally think that's his most well-known work as an actor. He's actually been in a lot of other movies as well. I recently watched Conclave, not Enclave, Conclave, I think that's how you pronounce it, on Prime, was it? Goodness me, my memory. Anyway, it's a movie about the papacy, the popes, and how basically they decide a new pope when one pope passes away, which currently is actually very relevant. Good movie. Anyways, getting off topic here. So I was originally a little bit apprehensive because I sort of feel like Stanley might be riding the coattails of his celebrity as an actor in order to talk about food. I think there are a lot of people out there these days that really like food and want to talk about it, and as they should. But I feel like it's easy for someone who's already famous for something other than food to kind of merge into the realm of food, if that makes sense. That kind of use their celebrity to all of a sudden become an authority on food, even if they never really experienced it or don't really know much of what they're talking about. It's just my personal experience. And so I was nervous when I started to read Taste that this might be a case of that, where Stanley has sort of chosen to write about food because it's in vogue at the moment, and why not? And he's got a bit of a history of it with his family, and so he might just use his celebrity to promote his book without really knowing what he's talking about. I am so happy to report that I was seriously wrong on this assumption. Stanley's book was an absolute delight to read, and I don't say that lightly. Stanley grew up in an Italian-American household, and his childhood centered around food and all the amazing food that his mum used to make for him in particular. And it was really nice reading about his childhood memories around food, and particularly also as a young man when he was living out of home and working as a young actor. All the places that he used to go to around New York where he could get a good sandwich here or go to a nice deli there. It was just really nice to get, I guess, a glimpse into his childhood and the kind of food that he used to eat. He includes a few recipes in this book as well, which is greatly appreciated, at least by me. And he also talks a little bit about his life in general as well, including the passing of his first wife and how he met his current wife. He talks about his home life. He talks about what happened during COVID in his personal life. He doesn't go into much detail because the book is mainly about food, but I found it really interesting to get a glimpse into his personal life and his private life behind the scenes in a way. Because I feel like you're so used to seeing an actor on screen and that's all you really know about them. But Stanley kind of brings you into his life as if you were a friend and as if you were at his dining table sharing a meal with him. And I found that really nice and really approachable and welcoming. Stanley's style of writing is also just so nice to read. Like, it just makes you feel emotional about the food, I guess, but also it's just light, it's happy, it's enjoyable, it's entertaining. He does swear a little bit, which I'm all for, because he was talking at one point about the book, in the book, about how some people cut their spaghetti. And he had a couple of profanities to go along with what he was saying, and I 100% agree. I was like, yes, Stanley, please let it out. I'm here for it. I need to feel your emotion, because that's how some people get about food. And Stanley doesn't hold back at all when he's describing things about food that make him feel things. If you're on the fence about reading this book like I was for a long time, please give it a go. It was so good. Stanley's writing was just a pleasure to read. And if you're really interested in food like I am, you will doubly enjoy this book. But even if you don't really care about food, or it's not really your jam, haha, pun, then please still read it. I think it's just a feel-good book, and it's lovely, and it's wonderful to get a glimpse into Stanley's life in regards to food, but also in just regards to how he lives his life as well. The next book I want to talk about today is Audrey at Home by Luca Dotti. What a beautiful, beautiful book. This book is basically about Audrey Hepburn and her joy and life through food, essentially. This book is written by her son, Luca Dotti, and it includes a lot of family stories and recipes and memories, and I think a lot of photos that haven't been published otherwise as well. And it's just an absolute delight, and a really rare glimpse into Audrey Hepburn's life, similar to Stanley Tucci's. It just gives you an insight into her life through food that I don't think the public really knows of otherwise. One part of the book that I find particularly interesting is when Luca talks about Audrey's childhood growing up in Holland during World War II, and how she suffered through quite a bit of malnutrition and I think a bit of starvation as well. And watching her movies, she's always been a very slender person, but I feel like her frame has definitely been affected by those years during the war when there wasn't enough food to eat. And I find that to be really interesting, coming from a place of such lack to then learning about how she approaches food in later life. Luca mentions that Audrey used to have at least a little bit of chocolate every day, and I absolutely love that. She said something to the effect that chocolate just makes you happy, and I think that's really beautiful. And I'm probably not going to live my life by that, because I eat enough chocolate anyway. I really don't need to have it every day. But I really, really love that Audrey, as slim and slender as she was, used to treat herself to some chocolate every day. I just think that's so beautiful. I really enjoyed learning about the food that Audrey used to cook at home, her favorite recipes and the stories behind them. But one of the other things that I really enjoyed about this book were just the photographs of Audrey. A lot of them were taken at home by her family. And like I said before, I'm pretty sure a lot of them have never been published or have never been in the public domain before this book was printed. And it's just so nice. I mean, I personally love Audrey Hepburn. I think she is one of the most beautiful, talented actresses that we've ever had. And I think the fact that she's so famous means that a lot of other people agree with me. But it's so nice, similar to Taste by Stanley. It's just so nice to get a glimpse into her private life and who she was and the kind of food she ate. And I think throughout the book, it's really obvious how much she enjoys her family time, how much she enjoys spending time with her sons, and just how much she loves coming together over some food. It was a fabulous book to read. And I personally like cooking mainly Italian, European kind of dishes at home. And that's mainly what Audrey used to cook as well. So if you like that kind of style of cooking and you want to just learn more about Audrey Hepburn, which I always do, I highly, highly recommend this book. The next book I want to talk about is How to Eat by Nigella Lawson. Oh my goodness, how have I been snoozing on Nigella Lawson for so long? I only just discovered all her old videos on YouTube. I think they've come on recently, or maybe in the last couple of years. They're her first cooking shows. So I think it's Nigella Bites and Nigella Summer. I think they were the ones that were filmed in the late 90s, early 2000s. I have personally never seen any of Nigella's cooking shows before until a couple of months ago. Oh, okay, I understand why she is as popular and as famous as she is. She is amazing. She is literally the goddess of cooking, and I love her. The way Nigella speaks and writes about food is just so emotive and beautiful and poetic, and she writes like no one else I've ever come across ever. And to read her writing about food is a sheer delight. And I love How to Eat because that's the first cookbook that she ever wrote, I believe. And it just is a all-encompassing summation of her passion and her love for food. And the way that she writes about food in this book is beautiful. Poetry is the word for it. It is just beautiful. Yes, this book is technically a cookbook, not a book about food, but Nigella writes this cookbook as if she's having a conversation with you in your own kitchen. And I actually read it cover to cover twice through in the space of about 2 weeks because I love looking through the recipes, but I also really just love listening to her speak about food through the book. Nigella says in the introduction of the book that she had been thinking about it, of course, for a number of years, but when it came to actually writing the book, it only took her 6 weeks to write. And I can totally see how. Like, it just seems like the words come forth from her heart and her stomach and just assemble themselves on the page. And it's just perfect. How to Eat contains so many recipes. I think it would take you a couple of years to cook through all of them. And I like that to begin with. I also think the recipes themselves are so simple and yet so not fancy, but just, they're just nice. They're special. They're simple and yet they're special. And there's something about making a nice homemade meal that is simple and yet feels a little bit fancy, a little bit nice, a little bit something different, something new. I just love that combination of homey and yet nice. And Nigella definitely hits it on the head. And unlike pretty much every other cookbook where I do want photos, How to Eat doesn't have really any photos of the food. And in a way, I feel like that's a good thing because, like I said, the book was written in maybe 98, 99, I think, so 25 years ago at least. And I feel like if the cookbook had photos of the food in it, by now those photos would have aged or would seem old and retro in a way. Whereas to not have photos of the food, just Nigella's writing alone has stood the test of time. And I feel like How to Eat is still just as relevant today as it was 25 years ago, because it hasn't aged like a photo, like a cookbook with photos would have. Plus the fact that the recipes themselves and Nigella herself are timeless. And despite the book's age, I do still want to cook everything. I am going to actually buy it myself. I did borrow it from the library, but whenever I borrow books from the library that I really, really like, particularly cookbooks, I will buy them. And so I am going to purchase How to Eat myself. I cannot wait. I'm kind of keeping it as a birthday present for myself just because I've only recently returned it to the library. And it's okay to have like a quick Nigella detox before I buy it and dive right back in again. But I can't wait to get my hands on it myself because I just think the recipes are amazing. They're stood the test of time. And Nigella's writing is just such a delight to read. And I think if you enjoy cookbooks and if you enjoy reading about food, then you've got to get your hands on this book. I know Nigella has a lot of other books as well. I haven't read any of her other cookbooks. And in a way, I almost feel like I don't need to. I almost certainly will eventually, but I feel like How to Eat, because it was her first cookbook and because it contains so many recipes and it's such a large, like there's a lot of writing. It's such a large cookbook as well. I just feel like by the time that I cook my way through How to Eat, and by the time that I had read through it as well, I already have the essence of Nigella. And I already understand how she writes, the kind of food she likes. And I just feel like it's the perfect summation of her and her passion for food. I'm sure I will eventually get to borrowing and possibly buying the rest of her books as well. But I feel like How to Eat is definitely enough to keep me going for a long time. Please, 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 if you like reading about food and you like cooking food at home, please, please, please look into How to Eat by Nigella Lawson and watch her videos on YouTube as well. I hope by now you really want to read some books about food and you may possibly be hungry as well, as am I. If you're interested in any of the books that I've mentioned today, I'll leave a link to them in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. See you again really soon. Bye.